Hi, it's Chris Croft here from Successful Trainers. I'm coaching people to become successful freelance trainers. And one of the questions I was asked recently was, do I have to invent all my own material for a training course? Is it okay to pinch other people's material? And I think that's a really good question. I'd never really thought about that before. And I think really my job as a trainer isn't to invent new material. My job is to curate material. So my job is to read every time management book or every sales book, pull out all the best bits, and then present it to you. Maybe pull it out, get it into a nice organized structure, and then explain it to you in a really clear, easy to understand way. So I'm saving you having to read all those sales books or time management books or whatever the subject is. And I'm presenting you just the best of. And I think that's absolutely fine. I don't think we would expect a trainer to invent all their own material, particularly as hundreds of people for hundreds of years have been perfecting these subjects. So who are we to come along and suddenly reinvent it all? And if I invent something, it's not based on any science or research, is it? So the stuff that's in the books has been tested either by scientific research or in practice. So I would actually suggest that your training course should consist of 3 types of theory, 3 types of material. And the first is the classics. You know, you can't do a leadership course without talking about Maslow, for example. So these classic theories have to really be in a training course. If you're doing time management, you have to look at importance and urgency. It's so fundamental and vital. You couldn't do a course without that. So that's the first type of theory, and it's a classic for a reason. It's a classic because it's great and it has stood the test of time. So we want those, but if your course was only those, it would be quite boring. So we want to find some obscure, interesting things as well. And this is where reading lots of books and pulling out the best bits comes in. So I will present to you all sorts of interesting little views on time management you haven't thought of, little nuggets and clever little ideas. And every time I read another time management book, I perhaps learn only one thing from that book, but it's worth it. I've kept that one thing and I'll show it to you. And it's perfectly fine, by the way, to say this is a classic theory and this is an obscure thing that I got from a little book called X. For example, there's a book called The Inner Game of Tennis, and I love that. And half of it's about tennis, but half of it's about life. And is it a good idea to be competitive? Is it a good idea to try to master things? And I love that. And I quite often mention things that I've pulled out of that little book. And there's a sales book called How to Be a Rainmaker. And there are some really interesting little ideas that I got from that book. So by all means, mention the books where you got your material from. I think the audience want to know, A, that you have read books, that you're well read, but also they might want to know which books to follow up and read themselves. So obscure things that you have found is part of the job of being a good trainer. But I also think that there could be some theories that are yours, that you've invented. So for example, I've got my spiral where I've got the amount you achieve and your quality of life and how you can go for maximum quality or maximum achievement. I don't know if you've seen that theory. It's in a separate video you can look at later. But I think to have a few theories that are your own is really good. And to be a really good trainer, I think you should have this third category of some stuff that you've done. And it might be just your own interpretation, or you might have combined 2 into your very own way of doing it. I've invented another one recently where I've been thinking about this, the fact that there's how much you involve people in the planning and there's how much freedom you give people in the doing. So you can say that I'll do all the planning, but you're free to carry it out, or you do the planning, but I want to keep lots of control over you when you do it because I don't know what your plan is, so I want you to check with me before you do each step. Or you can give them total freedom and just say you can do the planning and the doing. Or you don't really want to do this, but you could be a control freak and you tell them what the plan is, and then they have to also keep in very close contact as they do it. And so I've been combining the theory of planning, which is called Tannenbaum and Schmidt, and the theory of doing, which is called the Freedom Ladder. And I've combined those into this sort of matrix, and I think that's unique to me. Now, it may not be, maybe somebody else has thought of it, but I'm not aware of that. So I think it's quite good if you've got a bit of your own thinking coming in, even if it's based on the theories of other people, so that you really have got something that's unique to your training course. But I'm thinking probably only about 10% yours, and probably maybe 30% classics, 20 to 30% classics. And that would mean therefore that you could have perhaps 70 or 60% obscure stuff that you found in various places. And I think that would be a really great training course. So don't worry about the fact you're using other people's material. In fact, positively credit them and be proud of the fact that you've read those books and you've pulled it in. And you are allowed to use other people's theories, as long as you're not pretending to be them, as long as you're saying, I've read this in a book, because books are in the public domain. I think you're allowed to quote something like 10% of a book, word for word. And we're not even doing that. We're just talking about other people's theories that we like. So you are absolutely allowed to use other people's material, providing you credit it. And that's what we want a trainer to do. So I hope that's useful. And this is just a tiny part of the Successful Trainers program, where I will teach you how to produce brilliant training courses, how to sell them, and how to run a self-employed training business. If you want to know more about all this, contact me on the link below. We can have a chat. Maybe I can help you to become a successful self-employed trainer as well.